Hi, it's Dr. Sara Gottfried. I've got a happy video for you today because I wanted to focus on some of the differences between men and women and some of the positive differences that are in favor of women, because I think we don't hear enough about this. And I don't know about you, but in quarantine, I want to get all the good news that I can get. So I want to share with you from this talk that I'm giving on cardiovascular health, some of these benefits that we see in women. So let's start first with cancer. So we know that men tend to have higher rates of cancer compared to women. Even when you put breast cancer and other female cancers into the whole operation, we know that men tend to have cancer. 1 in 2 men tend to develop cancer over their lifetime versus 1 in 3 women. So there's something different in terms of surveillance and the risk of cancer between men and women. Some of that may relate to our genetic differences. So there's pretty significant genetic differences between men and women, between the X chromosome versus the Y chromosome. The Y chromosome is kind of a teeny little, I don't want to say puny, but it's a very small little chromosome, whereas X is quite a bit bigger. And that may confer some benefit in terms of longevity, in terms of telomeres, genomic stability. There's significant differences. So if we take longevity for a moment, we know that women, at least in the US, tend to live about 5 years longer than men. Now, that gap may be closing, but it's definitely something to keep track of. I feel like understanding some of these sex and gender differences really help us to understand health in general. So it's not that I'm sharing this in a one up, one down way, but more, how can we learn as much as we can about sex and gender differences so that they can help all of us understand ourselves better. So what are some of the other differences? I happen to have a slide on this, so I'm going to take a quick peek at it. So another big difference is that we've got these greater reserves. Women have greater reserves to accommodate pregnancy and lactation. Now, of course, not all women take advantage of those reserves, but it means that we've got organ reserves that men don't necessarily have. We're able to fluctuate our cardiac output over the course of the menstrual cycle and during pregnancy. So cardiac output increases substantially. Some studies say 20%, other studies say 50% over the course of pregnancy. So what that gives some women is almost the effect of modest exercise. They call it the jogging female heart. Another difference is fat distribution. So women tend to carry fat in their subcutaneous tissues. So like their arms, their breasts, their hips, their butt. Women tend to have a better distribution of fat in terms of the metabolic effects of where you carry fat. Men tend to have more visceral fat. Now that can change when you go through menopause, of course, but before menopause, there's this substantial difference between men and women. Another difference, and this has been studied very recently, is that women tend to have more microbiome diversity. So the microbiome, as you probably know, is the collection of microbiota in your gut. I'm referring here to the gut microbiome, and it's the DNA of those microbiota. So there seems to be more diversity in women, although on the flip side, women tend to have more bladder infections, and so we tend to have more antibiotic resistance genes. So, that's a little bit of a disadvantage that comes with the territory of higher rate of bladder infections. So those are some of the key differences between men and women, some of the advantages of being female. But I also want to hear from you. I want to crowdsource this. What else are some of the advantages of being female? Some of the biological differences, some of the gender differences that tend to go in favor of women. I want to hear from you. Okay, guys, talk to you soon.